Live from the BDN Studios, it's Bang and Dang.
That's awesome.
If you don't like that, then
You ain't black.
Battle of Atlanta took place during the Atlanta campaign, obviously July 22nd, just southeast of Atlanta. Continuing their summer campaign to seize the important rail and supply hub of Atlanta. How many times can I say Atlanta?
Right.
Union forces commanded by William Tecumseh Sherman go up against Confederate forces defending the city under John Bell Hood. War weariness was growing in the North, and President Abraham Lincoln's prospects for re-election were diminishing as a result. When, March 9th, we already know what happens. He commissions Ulysses S. Grant as the only Union Army Lieutenant General, which is then the highest grade in the United States Army. Look at that.
Look at that shit. Wow.
So he's even higher than Halleck. I'm higher than Halleck, baby.
Wow. 10th of March, Lincoln. He gave Grant command of all the armies of the United States. On the 12th of March, Grant's appointment as General-in-Chief was publicly announced.
Well, look at that. Good for him.
Major General William T. Sherman was assigned to command the military division of the Mississippi, including Department of Ohio, Department of Cumberland, Department of Tennessee, and Department of Arkansas. Sherman took command on 18th of March, 1864. The assignment made Sherman commander of the Union armies in the western theater of the war.
Grant devised a strategy for Union victory through simultaneous campaigns against several Confederate armies.
Oh, he already knew what he wanted to do.
He was like, all these guys are idiots.
Right.
He wanted to prevent Confederate armies from reinforcing each other in turn and to fatally weaken the entire Confederate army, obviously. Sherman would lead one of two key campaigns. The objective of Sherman's campaign was to defeat and disperse the Confederate Army of Tennessee under the command of General Joseph Johnston.
Right.
And to capture the vital railway center of Atlanta, Georgia.
Do that.
And to destroy or damage Confederate war resources as much as possible, and to split the Confederacy again, as had been done at Vicksburg and Port Hudson in July of 1863.
Sure did.
You know, final time. Split them up one final time, boys.
Yep. 4th of May, 1864. Sherman, ready to move his armies from Chattanooga, Tennessee toward Ringgold, Georgia, with an estimated 112,000 troops. Oh, Johnston from the old Reb side had between 60 to 70,000 troops. Johnston had taken advantage of terrain of woods, hills, rivers, all that in northern Georgia by entrenching his army at Dalton, about 1/4 of the way between Chattanooga and Atlanta. Okay. Historian Allen Nevins, he wrote that Sherman's numerical advantage did not make Johnston's position hopeless in view of his fortified line of defenses in the rough, confusing, mountainous, wooded country of
Okay, that's a lot of words to describe a
Right.
fucking
Right.
rough country. I
Right.
love that.
It had poor roads and 3 difficult rivers to cross. Well, Sherman had to keep his Western Atlantic Railroad supply line open so he could break away from it only for short periods of time. That's it. He's like, I can only for a minute. I got to see that.
We got to.
I got to be close to that railroad at all times.
During the months leading up to the battle, Confederate General Joseph Johnston had repeatedly retreated from Sherman's superior force.
Yeah, Johnson turned into a little bitch.
What was he supposed to do? He's got
Fight.
50,000 less men.
Fight.
It ain't 1861 no more.
Right.
Right. all along the western and Atlantic Railroad line from Chattanooga to Marietta, Georgia, a pattern was played and replayed. Johnson took up a defensive position. Sherman marched to outflank the Confederate defenses. Johnson retreated again.
Oh, wow.
After Johnson's withdrawal following the Battle of Resaca, the two armies clashed again at the Battle of Kennesaw Mountain.
We had them both.
But yes, obviously, the Confederate senior leadership in Richmond was unhappy with Johnson's perceived reluctance to fight the Union, even though he had little chance of winning.
Right. They booted his
Hey,
ass.
send all your men in the slaughter. We don't give a shit in the name of the country.
Right. They were like, you got to go, but who can we replace you with? Well, July 17th, preparing for the Battle of Peachtree Creek, Johnston said, go home, bud, or go somewhere else. And guess what?
Right here, this way. Just get the fuck out of here.
Right. Lieutenant General John Bell Hood comes in and takes the
JBH.
old lead. The dismissal and replacement of Johnston remains one of the most controversial decisions of the Civil War.
Right, because Johnson's clearly better than Hood.
Right. Hood was fond of taking risks, lashed out at Sherman's army at Peachtree Creek, but the attack had failed, with more than 2,500 old rebel soldiers being a casualty.
Well, now Hood needed to defend the city of Atlanta, which was an important rail hub and industrial center for the Confederacy, but his army was small in comparison to the armies that Sherman commanded. He decided to withdraw, classically threatening Sherman's supply lines in his army's rear. He hoped his aggressiveness and the size of his still formidable force on the move would entice the Union troops to come forward against him, if only to protect their rear supply line.
Right.
The Union did not do so.
Of course not.
Oh, it is this one, isn't it? McPherson's army closed in upon Decatur, Georgia, to the east side of Atlanta.
Uh-oh, here comes McPherson. He's ready to fight. Well, Sherman and his forces...
There goes McPherson.
Oh, Sherman's forces in the Atlanta campaign included 3 armies. The Army of Tennessee under Major General James McPherson. Army of Cumberland under Major General George Thomas. And the small Army of Ohio, including only the 23rd Corps and a few small units under Major General John Schofield. The Army of Tennessee comprised of the 15th Corps, initially under the command of Logan, and then under the command of Brigadier General Morgan Smith. 16th Corps under the command of Major General Grenville Dodge. And he also had the 17th Corps, and that was commanded by Major General Frank Blair, the Junior.
Junior Frankie. The Confederate Army of Tennessee was commanded by Johnson until the 17th, when he was replaced.
Right.
At the start of the campaign, the Army of Tennessee comprised 3 infantry
how can we
corps.
make this article a little bit longer? Oh, yeah, let's repeat ourselves.
Let's do this 100 times. At the start of the campaign, the Army of Tennessee had 3 infantry corps under the command of Lieutenant Generals William Hardy, Leonidas Polk, and John Bell Hood. Leonidas Polk is dead, though. And they had a cavalry corps under Major General Joseph Wheeler. After Polk was killed on June 14th, he was replaced in corps command by Major General William Wing Loring, temporarily and officially on July 7th by Lieutenant General Alexander Stewart. Many, but not all, of the units of both armies fought in the Battle of Atlanta and related action at Decatur on July 22nd, 1864,
General Hood, he ordered Lieutenant General William Hardy's corps on a march around the Union left flank. Had Major General Joseph Wheeler's cavalry march near Sherman's supply line. Major General Benjamin Cheatham's corps attacked the Union front. However, it took longer than expected for Hardy to get his men into position.
Just why not? A dude literally has nothing else to do but get his men in position.
Right. Confederate Major General William Walker, H.T. Walker, was killed, shot from his horse by a blue coat sharpshooter as he scouted the front to prepare his forces for the beginning of the battle.
Oh, poor guy, huh?
Damn. During that time, Hardy's corps was deploying for an attack. McPherson had correctly deduced a possible threat to his left flank. Oh, look at that shit. Wow.
Well, he sent the 16th Corps, his reserve, to help strengthen the position. Hardy's men met this other force, and the battle began. About this time, McPherson rode to the front with 2 aides to determine the situation and redeploy some regiments as gunfire continued to build to the south of his line. While on this reconnaissance, McPherson was shot and killed by Confederate infantry unexpectedly moving forward.
Wow.
When the Confederates called on him to halt, he turned his horse and tried to escape after refusing a demand to surrender. Although the initial Confederate attack was repulsed, the Union left flank began to retreat under heavy pressure. Initially, Hardy's column took the Flat Shoals Road towards McPherson's position.
Oh, my goodness. McPherson, you dumbass. Dude, why are these guys so, nonchalant, just walking around in battlefields?
Hey, you don't have nobody else that can go do some reconnaissance? Holy shit.
Union troops under Brigadier General Mortimer Leggett, commanding the 3rd Division of the 17th Corps, moved back from the road and swung to a more east-west position to fill a gap between Blair's Corps and Dodge's Corps. And they did that to defend Bald Hill. The main lines of battle now...
Gotta go back.
Right. The main lines of battle now formed an L shape.
All right.
With Hardy's attack forming the power... Fight the power! With Hardy's attack forming the lower part of the L. And Cheatham's attack on the Union...
my guess, what is he going to do? He's going to form the other part of the L?
Well, Cheatham, he's going to, while he's attacking Union front, as the vertical member of the L. So you're right.
Yeah, there's only 2 shapes that an L can be.
Right. Hood intended to attack the old blue coats from both east and west.
Yeah, that's a good plan, bud.
The fighting centered on a hill east of the city, known as Bald Hill.
Okay, yep, established that earlier.
Right. The old blue coats had arrived 2 days earlier and began to shell the city proper, killing several civilians.
Hey, good for them,
what
bud.
the hell?
Hey, man, all is fair in love and war. A savage struggle, sometimes hand-to-hand, developed around the hill, lasting just until after dark. We're like, all right, it's dark. We got to stop fighting now. No more
struggle.
No more fisticuffs.
Right.
The Federals held the hill while the Confederates retired to a point just south of there. Meanwhile, 2 miles to the north, Cheatham's troops had broken through the Union lines at the Georgia Railroad. In response, 20 artillery pieces were positioned on a small knoll, was it grassy, near Sherman's headquarters and shelled the Confederates, while Logan's 15th Corps was regrouped and repulsed the Southern troops.
Uh-oh.
In a separate action near Decatur, Colonel John W. Sprague, in command of the 2nd Brigade, 4th Division of the 16th Corps, was attacked by Wheeler's cavalry.
Oh, holy shit. Wheeler had taken the Fayetteville Road and moved into the town of Decatur. Union troops fell back, from the town while successfully protecting the ordnance and supply trains of the 15th, the 16th, and the 17th, and also the 20th Corps. Sprague received some reinforcements, but Wheeler withdrew due to being recalled by Hardee 3 times in quick succession at about 5 p.m. He's like, Hardee said, I need your help to attack Bald Hill, buddy.
He said, Hardee.
Sprague was later awarded the Medal of Honor for his actions.
Look at this.
The Union had suffered 3,700 casualties, including Major General McPherson.
Yeah.
While the old Rebs' casualties numbered about 5,500. This was a heavy loss for the already reduced Confederate Army. But they still had Atlanta.
For now, because Sherman had to settle into a siege of Atlanta, shelling the city and sending raids west and south of the city to cut off the supply lines from Macon. Both of Sherman's cavalry raids included McCook's raid and Stillman's raid and were defeated by Confederate cavalry collectively under General Wheeler.
Oh, look at Wheeler.
Although the raids partially achieved their objective of cutting railroad tracks and destroying supply wagons, they were soon after repaired and supply lines continued to move to the city of Atlanta.
Did nothing.
Found the failure to break the Confederates' hold on the city, Sherman began to employ a new strategy.
Ooh, gotta get a new one. Wow. Well, he's like, check this out, guys. We're going to swing this whole entire army in a broad flanking maneuver to the west. Finally, on the 31st of August at Jonesboro, Georgia, Sherman's army captured the railroad track from Macon.
Oh, there you go.
Pushing the old rebels to Lovejoy Station. With the supply lines fully severed, Hood pulled his troops out of Atlanta the very next day, which was September 1st, and he destroyed supply depots as he left to prevent the old Union from taking them over. Like, you ain't getting this shit, mofos.
Like, we don't care.
Right. He also set fire to 81 loaded ammo carts, which led to a conflagration watched by hundreds.
I'm sure they had no choice but to watch it, you know. September 2nd, Mayor James Calhoun, along with a committee of Union-leaning citizens, including William Markham, Jonathan Norcross, and Edward Rawson, met a captain on the staff of Major General Henry Slocum, and surrendered the city, asking for protection to non-combatants and private property.
Nope. Can't promise you anything.
Sherman, who was in Jonesboro at the time of surrender, sent a telegram to Washington on September 3rd, reading, Atlanta is ours, and fairly won.
Within a week of the fall of Atlanta, Sherman had ordered all non-military personnel out of Atlanta.
He said, this is our town now, bitches.
Reportedly,
Where are we supposed to go? We don't give a fuck.
Anywhere but here. Reportedly, he remembered the cities of Memphis and Vicksburg, which became a burden immediately after victory. He was like, you remember those? So he told...
Like they had to take care of everybody in town and shit after that. Nope, only people that's going to be here is military. We don't have nobody responsible for nothing.
So he told all the civilians of Atlanta, he said, hey, go north or south, bud. But
or east or west, I'm assuming.
You can't stay here. A truce of sorts was quickly established at a town nearby called Rough and Ready with General Hood. Damn, that's a town called Rough and Ready?
or is it the town called Rough and Ready with General Hood?
Right.
He's got his own like a tavern. He's like, welcome to Rough and Ready with General Hood.
Pew, pew, pew. Oh, wow. Where the old blue coats and the old Rebs prisoners were in small numbers exchanged, and civilians wishing to go south could help to that end.
Well, could get help to that end, so get assistance going south.
Either way.
Right. After the battle, Sherman established his headquarters in Atlanta September 7th. He stayed until November 15th when the Army of Tennessee, then commanded by Major General Oliver Howard and consisting of 2 corps and the newly formed Army of Georgia, look at that.
Georgia?
Which was commanded by General Henry Slocum, also with 2 corps, departed for Savannah on the campaign known as Sherman's March to the Sea.
Sherman's March
going to the sea. Despite the damage caused by the war, Atlanta recovered from its downfall relatively quickly.
Uh-oh.
As one observer noted, as early as November 1865, a new city is springing up with marvelous rapidity. Of course, it's Atlanta.
Right. The fall of Atlanta and the success of their overall Atlanta campaign were extensively covered by northern newspapers and were a boon to northern morale and to President Lincoln's political standing.
Right.
1864 election, Democratic challenger George McClellan, he ran against Lincoln. McClellan ran a conflicted campaign. He was a Unionist who had advocated continuing the war until the defeat of the old rebel army. But the Democratic platform included calls for negotiations with the old Confederacy on the subject of potential truce.
No.
Oh, wow. The capture of Atlanta and Hood's burning of military facilities as he evacuated showed that a successful conclusion of the war was in very sight. It was like right here. Weakening support for a truce.
They're like, why would we truce when we're about to dominate these fucks?
They're about ready for a truce before this, though. That's pretty crazy.
Right before Vicksburg.
Right. Then there would have been another Civil War, guaranteed.
Well,
Maybe not. As a result, Lincoln
Well, it
was...
would have been a truce and there would have been 2 countries.
Right. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that wouldn't have worked. That wouldn't have worked. Especially in today's climate. Imagine that shit.
All right. It would definitely be
Shit.
together as one.
Maybe.
As a result, Lincoln was reelected by a wide margin with 212 of 233 electoral votes.
Damn, McClellan. Not only did you fail as a general, you failed as a
Right.
politician.
And this dude is willing to just end the war and like screw it.
Right. 1880, Atlanta ranked among the 50 largest cities in the United States. Good for them. The battlefield is now urban, residential, and commercial land with many markers memorializing notable events of the battle, including McPherson's place of death. The marker was erected in 1956 by the Georgia Historical Commission. To commemorate the 140th anniversary of the battle in 2004, so now it's the 150th, or 160th battle, wow, or year, wow. 2 new markers were erected in the Inman Park neighborhood. The Atlanta Cyclorama building, built in 1921 and listed on the Register of Historic Places, is located in Grant Park and formerly contained a panoramic painting of the battle.
2014, City of Atlanta sold the Battle of Atlanta Cyclorama to Atlanta History Center.
Well, that's because why?
Atlanta History Center constructed new purpose-built building at their Buckhead campus to house the art piece.
Well, good for them.
The painting itself underwent an extensive restoration to reverse changes made to the original painting in the 1890s.
Well, what do they change?
Right. The cyclorama and accompanying exhibition opened at Atlanta History Center on February 22nd, 2019.
Well, good for them. Another notable establishment destroyed by Union soldiers was the Ponder House, built in 1857 and owned by Ephraim G. Ponder, a holder of 65 slaves before the war. In the battle, it was used by Confederate sharpshooters until Union artillery inflicted heavy damage. It was never rebuilt. One of Ponder's slaves, Festus Flipper, was the father of Henry Ossian Flipper, who later became the first African-American cadet to graduate from West Point.
Oh, fantastic.
Well, the stories all come around.
I like it.
That.
Well, at first, the old Battle of Atlanta wasn't look too good for the old Bluecoats. And then they regrouped.
Once you cut that supply line, man, nothing you can do now.